Despite having one husband and two boyfriends over the years, Dolly Oesterreich continued to keep her secret lover hidden in her attic. The 1920s murder and love triangle that involved Dolly is strange and sordid. Wahlberger, or Dolly, was a housewife in her early 30s, married to the owner of a Milwaukee apron factory. Fred was successful and worked long hours, but Dolly had needs and Fred was either too busy or too drunk to meet them. One warm autumn day in 1913, Dolly found that her sewing machine wasn't working. So she called Fred to vent her frustration and he promised to send over a repairman. The young man that showed up to fix the machine was 17-year-old Otto Sanhuber. She was 33 years old at this time. Dolly figured that Fred would send Otto over because she knew that he was working for him at the factory. When Otto arrived, he was met by the alluring Dolly, wearing only a robe and stockings, and thus began a bizarre affair that would last a decade. At first, Dolly and Otto conducted their relationship in the usual secretive manner, meeting in hotels to continue their sexual relationship. After a while, meeting outside the home became burdensome, and the two began having sex in the home. Soon, though, nosy neighbours began asking about the man who'd been hanging around. Dolly told them it was her vagabond half-brother. After realising that they were drawing attention to themselves, Dolly decided that Otto should take up residence in the attic of the home. That way he'd never be spotted coming or going. Otto quit his job at the factory and, having virtually no family, began to spend all of his time in his hideaway in the house. But this new arrangement meant that he couldn't ever leave the attic or prying eyes would notice. He remained sequestered there and worked on writing pulp fiction stories that he'd hoped to have published one day. For 5 years, Dolly and Otto carried on this odd relationship, with Otto living in the cramped attic. So when Fred informed Dolly in 1918 that he thought they should sell the house and move to Los Angeles, things could have gotten complicated. Instead, Dolly found a house overlooking Sunset Boulevard with an attic and sent Otto there early so he'd be waiting for her when she arrived. And so their lives continued in the exact same way it had been for more than 4 years until August 22, 1922, when Otto overheard Dolly and Fred fighting from the attic. He burst into the room with 2 pistols. Fred recognised him from the factory and became exceedingly angry. The 2 men then struggled and the guns went off. Fred was shot and Dolly and Otto panicked. Otto locked Dolly in a closet from the outside, taking the key and the guns with him to the attic. He knew neighbours would report the gunshots, and this way Dolly would have an alibi. She couldn't have shot her husband while locked away. When the police arrived, Dolly told them of a burglary where the robber had shot Fred, took some expensive belongings, and then locked her in a closet before fleeing. The police were somewhat wary of the story, but couldn't prove that it wasn't true, so they released her. Now, Dolly was a widow and she moved into a new house, continuing on with her life. One would assume that she and Otto could eventually bring their relationship into the open, allowing him to have a normal life. But instead, when Dolly moved, he took up residence in her attic, again. Otto Sanhuber had managed to get a few pulp fictions published, and with this money purchased a typewriter to keep writing, all while Dolly managed to get herself a new lover, lawyer Herman S. Shapiro. But like her first husband, he also spent long hours away due to his profession. And here comes Roy Klump, another lover to keep her occupied, though her use of Roy might have been to help her get rid of the guns that were used to shoot Fred. Dolly had persuaded him to ditch a gun for her, saying it resembled the burglar's gun and she didn't want to get in trouble. So Roy tossed it into the La Brea tar pits. She then sweet-talked a neighbour into burying the other gun in his yard. So when Dolly eventually broke up with Roy a while later, he went to the police with the story. The gun was pulled from the tar pits and Dolly was taken into custody. Her neighbour dug up the other gun and took it to the cops, but neither weapon could be tied to Dolly because the guns had corroded. With Dolly awaiting trial in jail, she begged Herman to buy groceries for Otto and to tap on the ceiling of the bedroom closet to let him know he should come out. She also tried to tell him that Otto was her vagabond brother, but starved for conversation with another male, Otto spilled the truth about the nature of his and Dolly's relationship. Herman told Otto to get lost and got Dolly released on bail. Apparently the fact that she had kept a man in the attic was not a deal breaker, as the lawyer promptly moved in with her. all charges against her were dropped. That is, until 7 years later when things became inseparable between them. He moved out and told the police what he'd gathered of the crime against Fred. Warrants were issued again for Dolly and Otto this time. A jury found him guilty of manslaughter even after his defense stated that Dolly enslaved him. Dolly went on trial for a conspiracy charge but walked free after a hung jury. The indictment was eventually dropped in 1936, and she died in 1961 at the age of 80.